Hey everybody, this is Christian, and today I'm going to show you how I organize all of my tech projects and documentation for my home lab. This is super important to me because, as you might have seen in my last home lab tour, I'm working on so many different things using various technologies, and without keeping track of everything, I would be completely lost, let's be honest. And I thought I can't be the one and only guy struggling with this, keeping an overview of my tech projects and documentation. So I made this video to show you all of my tricks for taking technical notes and my brand new task tracking system with a timeline and Kanban board, which helps me to plan everything much better and work more efficiently. I just have to warn you, some of it might be a bit overkill for a smaller home lab, but I can just tell you from my own experience, to me it has been really helpful. And trust me guys, if you can apply some of these tricks to manage projects in your tech company's infrastructure, every product manager will be jealous about it. Before we jump right into it and I show you my system, I quickly want to thank Notion for sponsoring this video. Notion is my platform of choice for tech documentation and project management because it has all of the features that I need. And real quickly, let me give you some tips if you're entirely new to Notion. First of all, you should check out the official website notion.com and sign up with an account. Don't worry, they even have a free plan that includes almost all of the important features that you need to manage home lab projects and taking notes. It even allows you to invite 10 guests to your account and retain a 7 days page history, only if you need some advanced features like unlimited blocks for teams or file uploads, a longer page history, or synchronized databases with third-party apps, which, by the way, is a super useful feature for managing GitHub issues and PRs in Notion, or if you need custom automations, charts, dashboards, or Notion AI, then you have to upgrade it. So there are really some useful features for Notion power users, but just to let you know, the free plan might already be enough for many people. So just try it out. It's really a great package in my opinion. And also, to get up to speed quickly, you should also take a look at some of the Notion templates. They have a large collection for various types of use cases where you can learn some of the basic functionalities and elements of this tool. So yeah, just take a look. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the basic features because I'm sure we all know how to use note-taking tools, right? Instead, I'd like to show you my Notion space and give you some insights into how exactly I'm using it for managing my home lab projects and my knowledge base or technical documentation. So here in my Notion space, I've organized everything in pages and databases. Databases, by the way, are, in my opinion, the most impressive and useful feature in Notion. So here on the left sidebar, you can see my main structure, beginning with notes, which I use for writing down my private stuff or keeping track of my workflows and meetings I attend or storing templates. Then we have one section where I manage my YouTube videos and tasks that I have, by the way, explained a little in my previous Notion video. So if you're interested in that, I link you the first video in the description box down below. So then we have my home lab section. We will go into it in a second. I've split this into 3 sub-pages or sections: documentation, project management, and task tracking. So these are most of the things that I do with Notion. And the last but not least, there's also a GitHub section where I manage some of my public projects in Notion. Like, this is mainly for synchronizing all of the issues, pull requests from my boilerplates and cheat sheets repositories. By the way, if you don't know about these repos, you should also check them out on GitHub. There I'm providing free configuration templates and resources for tech pros and home lab nerds like us, so you can easily use it to deploy new applications or automations in your home lab. So yeah, that's mainly everything you have to know about the main structure. Let's jump straight into my home lab section where I can show you some really cool stuff here. So I've customized this page with a nice icon and a banner, which is actually a picture I've taken of one of my home lab server. It's already a bit old, but I think it still looks pretty nice. And on this page, again, we have the 3 main sections I talked about earlier. The first one, HomeLab Docs, is actually a sub page where I document some general stuff about my home lab. For example, you can see there are 2 Excalibur diagrams of my network architecture and another one of my server rack, which provides me a great overview of the main infrastructure so that I know where all of my devices and resources are located and how they are related to each other. Nothing special here. I'd say just one thing about the Excalibur embeddings. This is a tool where I create almost all of my diagrams and graphics. This is a great feature in Notion. You can embed many different types of documents, including Google Drive links, PDFs, or many other third-party programs, just like Excalibur. And whenever these files update, it automatically also updates in Notion as well. So this is really nice to integrate Notion into other tools that you love using. Down below, I'm also keeping notes of my IP address management, and I write down all of my network zones and IP ranges in my HomeLab network. Some of you might think it is a little too much to write down all of the IP addresses of any device that you're deploying, but I can just tell you from my own experience, whenever I've worked with any kind of computer network, not just in my HomeLab, also when I was working as an IT service technician, this is one of the most important things to keep track of, especially in larger infrastructures with many different network segments, because IP addresses, they don't frequently change, but any IP conflict can cause huge problems in a computer network. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. I've gone through this a couple of times. So you definitely want to make sure that you're not assigning the same IP address to multiple devices in your network. That's, by the way, one reason why I also differentiate between a static IP range and DHCP ranges. Maybe at some day I need to make a separate video about network planning or management. I'm not going too deep into this today. But anyways, for these type of simple notes, I mostly use the integrated tables feature in Notion, which allows you to create new rows and columns in between, move things around quickly, and some of this stuff. So it does not have as many features as you might know it from something like Excel, but it is definitely enough for these simple things where you just need to write down IP addresses, or in other areas of my documentation, I also use it to write down deployments or virtual machine resources. This is where Notion tables are really great, but if you want to do some more complex tracking of items with, for example, different cell formattings or visualizing different things or filtering, then I would suggest using Notion databases instead. So let's return to my main HomeLab page where you can see these two databases. By the way, you can create databases in Notion as an inline database, just as you see here, or you create them as separate subpages. I personally prefer using inline databases slightly more because it allows you to place multiple databases on a single page, which is not possible with full sub databases. In my HomeLab page, the first database is a comprehensive list of all the projects that I'm currently working on or what I have previously worked on in my HomeLab stack. I've decided that every technology is its own project, which you could, of course, also do in a different or simpler way. However, I thought having a separate project for each technology that allows me to better structure all of my nodes, since each of these technologies have multiple deployments, resources, or tasks that I want to track. So it just made sense for me to differentiate all of these technologies as separate projects. But yeah, feel free to build your own way of organizing things. Notion databases offer you many capabilities to build a structure that fits your style and requirements. For example, this project board here is just the main view of the database that I prefer as a layout. It is actually a gallery using small cards without a preview, because I like this quick overview here with the different cards where I can just click on something and jump straight into these projects. However, I've also created different types of views, such as the project list here, which reveals some additional details or elements of these items in the database, such as a description that I try to keep track for every project, or the status, or also the link to my self-hosted Git repository for this project, because I usually also create a separate Git repository on my self-hosted GitLab platform for each of these projects. Again, just build it the way you like. Notion offers many different types of fields like text fields, numbers, selections, date, time, but also some cool AI autofilled fields or relations to other databases. And by the way, you can create as many views for these databases as you want. So with different layouts, depending on what type of visualization makes the most sense here. Furthermore, you can also apply different sorts of filtering, grouping, sortings, and even automations to create a highly customized experience experience that fits perfectly your project management structure or whatever you want to use Notion databases for. I absolutely love this for storing my HomeLab projects. And what is even better, you can use this Notion database to store additional information about these projects, because every item in a database can have its own page and sub-pages as well. Let's have a look at one of these projects. For example, let's go into GitLab, which is definitely one of my largest projects I'm working on in my HomeLab, where I took many notes, because GitLab can get pretty complex from time to time. And if you've seen some of my GitLab tutorials, you definitely know what I'm talking about. So here, for example, you can see I'm writing down everything that is related to this GitLab project. Usually I'm starting always with a quick description of what this project is about, followed by deployments, which in my case usually are Docker Compose deployments or Kubernetes charts or manifests. I always do this when I deploy a technology in my HomeLab stack, because I have many different virtual machines, clusters, and other devices. And when I quickly want to know for each project where exactly I have deployed what, I can just take a look at this Notion database and I know exactly where everything is. For instance, when we quickly switch to my traffic project, you can see that I have deployed multiple traffic instances, or you can see a similar documentation for the TwinGate project. This really helps me to have a good overview of everything and the related resources. And for some of these projects, I also take additional notes. So the first section of the project page is usually for keeping a list of all the deployed resources and references. And the second section is for my notes and knowledge base. I can't emphasize this enough. A good knowledge base or documentation about all the projects that you're doing is so freaking important in IT. Every professional should build something like this, because sometimes you just have to write down these things and keep track of configuration settings or code snippets, links to relevant articles or documentations that you might need in the future again. And Notion has some great elements and functions for taking technical notes, such as code blocks with syntax highlighting, or these small call-out boxes that you can use to highlight certain elements, things that you need to be aware of. And you can also, by the way, use the Markdown syntax, just like you know it from other tools like VS Code, to quickly format text into headings, tables, code blocks, and checklists, for example. Also pretty useful. And another great tip that I can give you: whenever you're writing down notes or documentation, you should also always use a proper heading structure, because when you move your mouse to the right sidebar, Notion displays an outline of the page where you can quickly jump into the section that you're looking for. And of course, you can better find all these things when you use meaningful names and a structure. It's similar to using variables or descriptions in programming. Don't worry, I think you don't have to do this for all of the projects in the same detail, so sometimes it's just enough to add a simple link to relevant places in the documentation. So just don't try to copy the official documentation, that really doesn't make any sense. But it's useful to just write down things that you believe might be useful for you to remember in future projects. And of course, you're also like better understanding stuff when you're doing researching, and from time to time writing some quick notes or bullet points about the stuff that you're learning. When you do this regularly, you also have a great advantage when you're researching new technical topics, because the latest release of Notion AI added a brand new research function, which is amazing for creating new and polished Notion documents. Because Notion AI has access to all of your databases and pages, plus the web search. And of course, the more stuff you're documenting about your HomeLab and projects, the more intelligent and useful the AI answers become. For example, here I'm using the new research mode in Notion AI to generate a full documentation report for my current HomeLab, which includes many details about the hardware and networking setup, software architecture, maintenance, security measures, and anything else that I've written down, which, by the way, Notion AI completely figured out on its own what is important and what not. And the cool thing is that because I'm also planning my YouTube videos in a Notion database, the Notion AI had also access to all of the YouTube your video scripts and combining this with my HomeLab documentation from the database, that really generated a comprehensive and correct report of everything that I have currently deployed and that is important in my HomeLab. It's really impressive. However, you have to keep in mind that this research mode can also take quite a long time because it indexes many different sources and it's using a reasoning model to create a plan, and it also iterates through this planning process a couple of times. So in my case, it took about 5 to 6 minutes to generate this report. But just imagine you would have to read through all of the pages and databases yourself to generate such a report. It literally saves you hours of time, which makes the research mode of Notion AI, in my opinion, the most practical feature for us technical people. But of course, Notion AI also has other cool features, like you can ask it anything about your Notion content in databases or pages, and this response is, by the way, super fast. And you could also use some of the external AI models like GPT or Claude for researching and asking questions. I bet you all know how to work with AI in general, right? But also, if you're attending to technical meetings, Notion AI has also a nice feature that summarizes everything that was discussed in these meetings called AI meeting notes. And yeah, these are all of the reasons why I personally love to use Notion for my technical project documentation and management, and why I'm always taking so many notes on all these projects, because then I can later use Notion AI to better research new topics and find the information that I'm looking for. Maybe I'm a little crazy and sometimes I probably go a bit too far. I have to admit it. However, I've always realized that over time, by adding more and more projects to my HomeLab, it really has become more and more complex for me. And to avoid getting overwhelmed by all of the complexity or losing focus on things that I want to work on, I even had to extend this system and add another database to track and plan my activities. Because technical documentation is one thing, but planning actions and project management is the other. And I will shortly explain why I built this type of complex system for me. Because whenever I have to do things like updating stuff, migrating stuff, or fixing issues, the first thing that I tried is to add a simple checklist on all these individual project pages in the Notion database. But the problem with that was that when you try to maintain multiple checklists across different sub-pages, you totally forget about them, because you don't have a good all-in-one overview of all the checklists at one place. You always have to go into each of these sub-pages, and then you just can't really plan any tasks across multiple projects. So therefore, I came up with a different solution. I thought it would be a good idea to extend my first HomeLab project database with a second database where I just track all of the actions and tasks that I'm working on. For this, I'm using another super cool feature in Notion, because it allows you to add a relation field to connect items across multiple Notion databases. In my case, each item in the task database below is assigned to a single project. And I always create a new task for any action where I need to write down notes or where I need to plan this in the future, such as migrations, enhancements to existing deployments, or resources, bugs that I notice, or evaluations of new technologies I want to take a look at for making new videos, of course. And I always prioritize them as high, medium, or low items, depending on how important these things are to me. Of course, I have also created multiple views for this task database to get a better overview of everything in a list that is grouped by priorities. Or what I absolutely love to use is a Kanban board. Yeah, this is my most favorite type of visualization, because it allows you to have different cards of these task items, and you can put them in different buckets. For example, based on the status level. That's highly common, by the way, in software development or project management in general. And in my opinion, it's a great way to plan tasks and also practicing if you're using that type of system in your main job, such as the job where I'm working. Like, everything is documented in Jira, and using a similar system for my HomeLab helps me to adapt this type of workflow. What I also just recently started using in Notion is the task timeline. This is similar to a Gantt diagram. And yeah, I know, guys, this is far too much for a one-man project. Usually you use this in smaller development teams and so on. But believe me, guys, if you're working on so many different things in parallel, like I still have my main job where I also need to keep track of tasks and plan projects. Then I have my YouTube videos and my HomeLab as well. So I just get lost when I don't plan my activities and things ahead of time, because I usually cannot simply just start migrating something or evaluate a new technology. I always have to juggle between all the different things in my life and put things aside for a few days or weeks. And that's why I'm using this system to really write down all of the stuff that I cannot keep in my brain, to work on these things later and really carefully plan my time so that I don't get overwhelmed by all of this stuff that I have to do. And what is also super useful in these timelines or Gantt diagram is that you can keep track of dependencies and relationships between the tasks. I just give you an example. I'm currently working on this project for creating and deploying my new website with CI/CD, which is related to the Hugo static website builder project that I'm also making a video, of course. But that task has a few other dependencies that I need to take care of. For example, I first of all have to complete writing my CI/CD pipelines in GitLab, which is necessary to host the website. And of course, the website deployment I can only do if I've created the main structure for the website beforehand. So that's why these tasks have blockers and are blocked by other elements. Or I also have another example where I needed to migrate some of my applications from the Raspberry Pi Kubernetes cluster, because honestly, guys, I just want to get rid of this thing and move the workloads over to some virtual machines on Proxmox. But I first of all have to create the servers, I have to install them, I have to deploy Kubernetes, and then I have to migrate the applications, move the monitoring, and then also check if everything works. So I just try to make a list of all the different tasks that are assigned to separate projects and manage dependencies. So whenever I have some time at weekend to start working on this, I can just go through my checklist, and the timeline has been super helpful to do these things. The more complex your infrastructure becomes, the more you have to be aware of these little details that can get you in trouble. And that's why I'm using Notion and this project management system that I've built to make it as efficient and easy as possible for me. Of course, I still want to get some stuff done. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time managing all of these projects. So that's why I'm also using a few automations in Notion, such as this create task button here. So whenever I want to create a new task for a project, I just go to the first database, go into the project page and click that button. That will automatically run an automation pipeline in Notion to create a related item in the second task database to this project, opens it, and I can immediately start working on this. And that's really saving a lot of time that you usually would have to spend working on a project management tool, and that's not really what we want. We just want to get stuff done in IT, right? By the way, when we were talking about automation and efficiency, Notion has also recently released another super interesting feature called webhooks. So no, it is not just possible to trigger automations to Notion elements, like creating pages and subpages. You can also send a webhook to a third-party system, maybe a GitLab automation pipeline, which can do many other things in your infrastructure. I have to admit I haven't used it yet for my system because currently my system is working fine as it is. Maybe at some day I can think of a use case where to use this webhook feature. Could be really interesting. But yeah, guys, so this is basically how I manage all of my tech projects and documentation in Notion. Again, I could talk another 20-30 minutes about all the different features or go into other details, but I think it is enough for today. I hope it was already a bit helpful and you could take away the one or another cool trick that you want to add to your project management systems. Please tell me in the comments what you liked the most, or if you didn't like it at all, then you can also tell me, of course. And as always, thank you so much for watching, guys. A huge thanks goes to all of the YouTube members and supporters of my channel, and I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.